To the Korean Dharma brothers and sisters, I'm giving this on the second day of the teaching. The teaching is on the heart of the perfection of wisdom, which is recited by most of the followers of the Sanskrit tradition. So Tibetans, Mongolians, and also Japanese people, Vietnamese, and then the Chinese, of course, do recite it very much, and then Japan, and then Korea. So those of you, my Dharma friends, who recite the Heart Sutra, we are all same in reciting it. The Buddha, Shakyamuni himself, Bhagwan Buddha, first turned the wheel of Dharma on the Four Noble Truths, where he said the suffering must be known, and the origin must be eliminated, and this true cessation must be actualized and paths cultivated. And so, if you know the root of our suffering, because the true nature of mind itself is luminous, and the defilements are not in the intrinsic nature of the mind. They are temporary. So this basic luminosity, the natural luminosity of the mind, is something from which these defilements can be eliminated. And so the great masters of the Nalanda tradition have taught that the defilements are not in the intrinsic nature of the mind. As this quotation says, the defilements are adventitious, and the nature of mind is luminous. And the potential for enlightenment is there naturally within us. That means to realize this very basic nature of the mind can be realized. And so as the defilements are eliminated, as you go through the process of eliminating them, the different Buddha qualities, such as that the 10 powers and so forth, becomes more and more the greater possibility to attain them becomes clearer and clearer. And so the great Nalanda masters, such as Master Nagarjuna and so forth, have used logical proofs to demonstrate that the defilements are adventitious, and the qualities such as that we can develop are the potential for them are within us naturally. And we do study in the big monastic institutions. We do study Master Chandrakirti's Madhyamaka Avatara. In fact, we since childhood in our monastic institutions, the students memorize this Madhyamaka Avatara, entering into the middle way. And it is not an easy text, of course. So masters like Chandrakirti actually rejects the philosophical assertions of other masters, such as Vasubandhu and so forth. So this is done, the rejection is done not for fame or anything, but using reason and logic. And so Master Chandrakirti says that this profound emptiness can be realized by those who have propensity for them from the past, even if someone may be very learned, cannot realize this profound emptiness. And so within the philosophical schools of Buddhism, the main schools are those of the Chittamatra and the Madhyamakas. And Chittamatras state that things are non-dual. There's not duality between the subject and the object, whereas the Madhyamakas say that things do not exist independently or truly. Especially the Prasangika Madhyamakas, represented by Master Chandrakirti, says that so as I quoted yesterday, the verses from Madhyamaka Avatara, where there are the four logical absurdities that would befall someone who asserts that things have some objective or self-characterized nature. And so though things do appear to exist from their own side, they do not exist in that way. So if things were to have any self-existence like that, then the Arya beings, an Arya being or noble realized being who sees emptiness directly should be able to find it which is what they are actually looking for, the true nature of things, whether they exist the way they appear or not. They should be able to find it, whereas that is not the case. And therefore, it would be tantamount to say that to assert, when you assert that things have some self-existence, that the Arya beings' wisdom, realizing emptiness directly when they are in meditative equipoise on the emptiness, should be able to find it. Whereas there are others who, both Chittamatrans and Madhyamaka philosophers, who do assert that things must have some existence from their own side. But that is not the case. Otherwise, if things were to exist, have some self-existence, then the way our ignorance, which grasps or hold on to some objective existence, would be the way it perceives or clings on to, should be there. So all these objects around us, different forms, sounds, smells, and so forth, though they do appear to exist from their own side, they do not exist in that way at all.
속스는 아주 편은 되게 타 에 배는 상계 수고 부수소와 현든 수고 랑든 추구선에 아주 부샤지야 지금 에네
So the two Buddha bodies, the physical dimension, which is for the sake of others, to serve others, and the Dharmakaya, which is for their own self. Even they cannot be found when you search for their true identity. So when we do not do any kind of ultimate analysis into how things exist, their nature, trying to probe into their nature, we cannot find anything. And therefore, form is emptiness, it says in the Heart Sutra. But does that mean form does not exist? When we say form is empty? No, because it is said that form exists by way of dependence on other phenomena. So as I have already mentioned yesterday too, where he says, whatever arises through dependence is said to be empty, and that is designated self, and that is the middle way. And so our body, for example, how does it exist? It exists by way of dependence, and therefore so since things cannot be posited to have any objective existence, how do they exist is by way of designation alone. And therefore, since these form and so forth do affect us, they influence us, they do exist, whereas they exist not by their own nature. And therefore, form is empty, emptiness is form, and emptiness is not other than form, and form too is not other than emptiness. And therefore, this teaching on the Heart Sutra on emptiness is very important. So towards the beginning of the Heart Sutra, it says, thereupon, through the Buddha's inspiration, the Avalokiteshvara, at that same time as well, the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the answers. The Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, great being, spoke to the Venerable Shariputra, and noble son or daughter who so wishes to engage in the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom should clearly see this way. They should see perfectly that even the five aggregates are empty of inherent intrinsic existence. So, as I explained yesterday, the word even, in the first paragraph, even the five aggregates, does not seem to be there in the Chinese translation, but it has its special significance. So when you think about this non-inherent nature of a person, it's easier. But when you have to think about the non-inherent nature or existence of the five aggregates, when you reflect on that, then it would seem as if you cannot have anything that you can say or posit as a person without there being these aggregates. And so the five aggregates also should be seen as empty of intrinsic existence. And then the form is emptiness. When it mentions this, form is used as the subject on which emptiness is established. And so, whatever thing there is, for example, those of the major and minor excellent marks of the Buddhas, even they cannot have any intrinsic existence. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form, form is emptiness is not other than form, and form too is not other than emptiness. Likewise, feelings, like perceptions, mental formation, consciousness are all empty. Therefore, Shariputra, all phenomena are emptiness. They are without defining characteristics. They are not born. They do not cease. They are not defiled. They are not undefiled. They are not deficient. They are not complete. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no mental formation, and no consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind. There is no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no texture, and no mental object, and so forth. And then regarding the 12 links of dependent origination, through which, beginning with ignorance, we are propelled into the samsara. And so there's no ignorance, and there's no extinction of ignorance. So here there is some connection with this understanding or the philosophical, what is known as the things to be seized, or disintegration of things, and so on, up to aging and no aging and death, no extinction of aging and death. And then we stopped yesterday at all Buddhas, 2 who abide in the 3 times 18, full awakening of unexalt, perfect enlightenment by relying on this profound perfection of wisdom. So we stopped there. So if you sustain this realization of emptiness, will you be able to overcome the residual stains left by the mental afflictions? And that's not the case. In order to be able to eliminate even those of the obscuration to knowledge, this cognitive obscuration, you need to, for that you need to combine both the accumulation of merit and the accumulation of wisdom. So the accumulation of merit must complement. So of course, you may have the wish to you may accumulate some merit through certain practices of giving and so forth, but when you do that practice of giving with the aim of reaching Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings, which is to say, the aspiration to Buddha enlightenment, the omniscience for the benefit of all sentient beings, not only that too, not only for a temporary time, short time, but as long as space remains, endures, as long as sentient beings remain, may I too remain to dispel the suffering of transmigrators. So with that kind of far-sighted vision of reaching Buddhahood, in order to benefit all sentient beings who are as vast as the expanse of the space, you'll be able to accumulate a huge merit, immense merit that will help to eliminate these obscuration to knowledge as well. And so until the end of the space, you are determining yourself, feeling determined to work for the sentient beings. So your aim to reach enlightenment is propelled by this huge determination to reach enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. So your aim is immense, and the accumulation of merit is immense, and the result of Buddhahood is also something incredible. And so I have explained about bodhicitta a little bit yesterday. Bodhicitta is something remarkable. So having a good heart, warm heart, is something which even when some other animals do this, be compassionate to others, we find it quite remarkable. But here we are talking about this courageous heart of which is aimed, with which we aspire to reach Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. And so this helps to counter your extreme self-cherishing attitude, and also to eliminate this grasping at true existence in things and beings. And this helps is helpful to oneself as well as others in the short as well as long term. And therefore, Master Shantideva makes this prayer in Maitreya's aspirational prayer. It says this bodhicitta, pay homage to bodhicitta, which averts one from going into the lower realms, which leads you to higher realms, and which leads you to the deathless state. So if you have a good, warm heart, of course, there are all kinds of beings and people around us. Some are, we consider some as our adversaries, some as friends, near and dear ones, and so forth. But to every one of them, if you have a good heart towards them, what happens is the whole perception, your whole perception or outlook on things would be pure. And whatever appearances there are that you have, would turn into favorable conditions. So, of course, when we have compassion or affection towards our near and dear ones, that is mixed with attachment, whereas compassion towards your so-called enemies is a true compassion, which is not mixed with attachment at all. And so it's a true compassion. And therefore you can see how important, how valuable and precious and your enemies are. As Shantideva says in Bodhisattva Charyavatara, of course, we need to practice patience, which is very important. But in order to be able to do that, you need to have provocators of anger and so forth, in relation to whom you can practice patience. And therefore, so bodhicitta is something which brings peace of mind in the short term, as well as the final enlightenment in the long run. So there are many different explanations of bodhicitta, the practices to cultivate bodhicitta. There are many different means, but the most profound one is equaling and exchanging self and others. So in the teaching lineages, we do talk about the extensive conduct lineage, the profound view lineage, and then the marvelous or extraordinary lineage of the blessings. And so that has to do with this exchanging self and others. So, in the practice of bodhicitta, if you are not thinking of with selfish motive, but you are actually thinking of others, taking on the suffering of others, and giving your joy, happiness, and so forth to others. And so Master Shantideva says, unless you exchange your joy and happiness with the suffering of others, live alone, reaching Buddhahood, even in this cycle of existence, you will not have happiness and joy. And therefore, which intelligent person would feel discouraged to ride the horse of bodhicitta, which leads one from blissful state to blissful state? And therefore, as the Kadamba masters say, with bodhicitta, what you can do is it helps to, the bodhicitta helps to purify your negativities and collect or amass positive energy and merit. And so, with a sincere heart, when you are able to practice bodhicitta like that, then you will be able to even turn your enemies into friends. So, which intelligent or thinking person would feel discouraged to ride the horse of bodhicitta, which does away with despair and leads you from bliss to bliss? And so, with that kind of determination and a courageous heart, if you are able to combine both the view of the insight or understanding of emptiness and bodhicitta, you will be able to reach Buddhahood without much difficulty. So at this stage, of course, even for the arhats of the Pratya Shravakas and so forth, because they still have this self-cherishing attitude, they are not able to reach. They have not able to reach their Buddhahood. And so, to go through the text, all the Buddhas too, who abandoned 3 times, attain the full awakening one is still perfect enlightenment by relying on this profound perfection of wisdom. And therefore, one should know the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge. So in the commentaries on these texts, there are, they do come across these points, but there are not so remarkable explanations. So mantra equal to the unequaled. The mantra that quells all suffering is because it is not deceptive. So what that refers to is not being receptive. Here refers to being through this wisdom of emptiness, you are able to counter or cause damage to the grasping at self-defined characteristics in things. And so when you progress along the path, finally where you reach is the Buddhahood, which is referred by Bodhisattva. And so Gate, Gate, Parasam Gate refers to the paths. So it is reaching Buddhahood does not happen immediately, instantly. So Gate means go beyond, go perfectly beyond, and set the lay the foundation of Bodhi or enlightenment. So I am aspiring to reach the second Gade. So this is a verse from Madhyamaka Avatara, the verse 224, I think. 24, 25, and 226. So these are lines of verses, the three final verses of the Madhyamaka Avatara, 6th chapter. So that's how we should progress along the path. So thus illuminated by the rays of wisdom light, the Bodhisattva sees as clearly as a gooseberry on his open palm that the three realms in their entirety are unborn from their very start. And through the force of conventional truth, he journeys to cessation. And then, though his mind may rest continuously in cessation, he also generates compassion for beings bereft of protection. And so when I explain about this altruism to even the scientists, I mean, they also admire these teachings. So when we are able to develop the path within ourselves, after having developed bodhicitta itself, and then reach the first path, which is the path of accumulation, and then from there you can progress to the path of application or preparation, and then the path of seeing and path of meditation. And so in this way, you progressively reach the higher spiritual attainments, finally reaching Buddhahood. And so we'll stop here. So in order to reach Buddhahood, reach the state of enlightenment referred by Bodhi, we need to cultivate bodhicitta. And of course, on a daily basis, we need to acquaint ourselves, familiarize ourselves with bodhicitta and the wisdom of emptiness. And so I will do a ceremony of bodhicitta tomorrow.
Thank you, Your Holiness. Today, we have 5 questions for you from Korea. The first question is from the representative of Silk Road Tour Agency in Korea, Sang-won Lee.
존자님 반갑습니다. 이렇게 존자님을 배우니 정말 대단히 기쁘고 행복합니다. 질문 드리겠습니다.
So with greetings to Your Holiness.
아상이 높아지는 것도 수행 단계에서 나타나는
It is said that an increase in self-attachment occurs during our practices. Does this truly occur, or is the practice method wrong? So attachment to oneself, of course, happens instinctively. affection to oneself or loving oneself. So because of this, we also can have the wish to reach Buddhahood, which is full of positive qualities. Even the Shakyamuni Buddha himself reached enlightenment by seeing that he had the possibility or the potential to reach perfection, and therefore he engaged in the accumulation of merit and wisdom over three countless eons. Of course, self-attachment may be mixed with the grasping at true existence, but there is also a passion for oneself, which is not necessarily attachment as such, but you can have so it is mentioned that Master Asanga, because of his passion to help others, he meditated on Maitreya and finally had vision of Maitreya and received teachings from him. And so here the term Dakchak in Tibetan can be also referred to as compassion, not just the mental afflictive attachment.
Yes.
Okay. The second question will be asked by Jidok Sunim from the Kamtasli Meditation Center in Korea.
Yes.
달라이라마님 안녕하세요.
Good morning, Your Holiness.
달라이라마라. 언젠가는 우리들이 수행의 스승님 밑에서 떠나서
What do you consider to be the most important thing when a disciple is about to embark on an independent path? So first of all, regarding a spiritual master, a spiritual friend, Master Tsongkhapa mentions in his Lamrim Chemo, the great treatise on the stages of the path, without taming oneself, you cannot tame others. Those who wish to tame others must tame themselves first. And how to go about with that is not just to have some kind of the so-called realization, which you may be able to develop here and there, but you should develop this realization through the three trainings. So a spiritual teacher must be someone who can lead his or her disciples along the path, which means discipline them. So for that, the teacher himself or herself must be disciplined or subdued first. So, for example, for us, Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, we consider him as our ultimate teacher. And then the past masters of Tibet, of the Sakyanyingma Gelu Kagyu traditions and so forth. And then in this life also, we have met with many lamas who have given us teachings, transmissions, initiations and so forth. So in order to repay their kindness of teachers, we need to be practical about what they have taught us. We need to practice it. So even if the teacher may not be with us now, that Lama may have passed away,
다 통마 투중 그 고하게
Of course, you can pray to your Lama for blessings and so forth, but what mainly you need to do is to remember the teachings and study them further and reflect on them and then meditate on the teachings so that you can have the experience yourself, whether the Lama, your Lama, is alive or not now. Whatever he or she has taught you must be integrated within yourself. And therefore, the teaching on the Four Noble Truths that Buddha has taught, and therefore, Rinpoche in his Great Stages of the Path says that these Four Noble Truths, therefore, is something which the basic vehicle as well as the great vehicle teachings teach. And therefore, the teachers must use this as the leverage to lead their disciples. So, of course, you may have the blessings of the Lama by receiving an initiation or some blessings. Of course, you may be able to have faith in such a Lama, but someone who merely does these kind of rituals may not be quite remarkable, but Rinpoche mentions a Lama should be someone who is able to lead disciples through the teaching on the Four Noble Truths. And then the Lama also should be someone who has the 10 qualifications that are mentioned in the Mahayana Sutra Alamkara as quoted in Lamrim Chemo, which is to say that they are subdued, tamed, and thoroughly tamed, and so forth. So, of course, blessings from Lamas may be important, but the most important thing is to receive explanations of the teachings. You may receive Wang empowerments and transmissions, Lung, and then Ti. But the Ti, the guided explanations of the teachings, through which the Lama is able to teach you about the practices leading to higher rebirths and liberation and so forth. And so you should ideally have such a teacher who can lead you through the path. And having received the teaching, even if the Lama may not be with you now, you can still remember their teachings, and you can visualize the Lama in front of you and do the practice of purification and accumulation of merit based on the Lama. And without forgetting the teaching of the Lama, you can still receive the blessings of the Lama, even if he or she may not be here. And so until reaching enlightenment, you should be able to go through the practice of the teaching.
Next question
Next,
will be asked by Korean artist Yang Suk Kim.
안녕하세요. 전자님께 질문을
Morning.
드릴 수 있어 영광입니다. 전자님께서는 그림을 보고
Are
감동.
there any art pieces that have moved His Holiness? If so, what are they?
소리고 다 할래할 쓴다 뒤진서자
Art piece of art that is amazing, something that's really is amazing is the nuclear bombs. And then, of course, they're very powerful to destroy others. And then you have the aeroplanes So these technologies are amazing. But when you use these, then you will be able to use them to destroy others. That's something unfortunate. But of course, we cannot say technology and art and so forth are not needed. But although we have these skills, we can still make more advancements on them as long as they are not used as a tool to destroy others out of anger, jealousy, and so forth. So when you have anger and all these, when you're enslaved by anger, you can even use a small needle or knife which also comes as part of art piece to destroy others. You can prick needle on others and prick others with needle, and also use knife to cut others. So if we use art and crafts with a negative attitude, negative state of mind, anger and so forth, then they are useless. It's like studying the Dharma texts as well. If you become a learned person, but you use your knowledge to defeat others and for your own victory, without having been able to tame your mind, but being overcome with anger, attachment, jealousy, and so forth.
Next.
The first question is also from Korean artist Yang Soo Kim.
전자님, 사람에게 행복감과
What is the mindset of an artist to give happiness and bodhicitta to its audience? So, through art, what we need is affection or love and loving kindness, which is not mixed with attachment. So if you look at animals, a mother is so affectionate towards its child. And when you draw art, when you make when you create an art, it should inspire people to have that kind of affection towards others. We survive on the basis of, through the kindness and affection of our mothers. And so, through your art, if you are able to inspire people to emulate the affection, compassion, love, even children may be able to be inspired. Whereas if you create a piece of art which brings fear, it will not inspire children. Whereas if you draw a mother caring for her child and others, then when children see them, they would be inspired. Whereas if you create a piece of art which is terrifying, like tigers killing another animal and so forth, that would be would not create or bring or inspire compassion as such. So, if you can create an art which inspires compassion, love, and within others, that would be good and beneficial.
The last
Next.
question of the day is from Sujin S님, the abbot of Yonghwasa Temple.
전자님 강령하셨습니까? 두 가지만 질문 드리겠습니다. 첫 번째로
So we would like to listen to his opinion on the Buddhist sects trying to change the rules and regulations due to the changes in society.
어떻게 이것을 잘 계율대로 극복해 나가야 할 것인가 하는 그 첫째 질문하고요. 두 번째로는 티베트에서는 스님네들이 어떠한 계를 받아서 스님이 되는가 두 가지에 대해서 질문 드리겠습니다. 감사합니다.
뭐야?
Thank you.
다 나도 저분이 뒤가는 여대회 매취
So the different religions, traditions in this world have been there, the followers following their traditions for over 1,000 years now, whether they are Christians or Muslims. They carry on with their own practices and tradition. So for Buddhists,
말해서 상계배 다 최배 나라야 아니 검소 체대야
so there are those who mainly focus on meditation,
야 맞춰서네 간다 아니
but do not
다 지금 샤바 소차 주소차 디 검자 소차로 된다 차네 여소시도가
So there are the traditions which focus mainly on the learning and also mainly on meditation. So when I was in Japan one time, in a temple, I appealed to the monastics there to make that temple a center for the study of Buddhism, not just doing meditation. So of course, meditation is good, but when you have to counter our destructive emotions and those of the self-cherishing attitude, you need to learn about how to learn how they could be countered. Merely doing thoughtlessness meditation cannot help that. So we need to use our intelligence, being able to discriminate between or differentiate between the benefits and advantages of cherishing others more than oneself alone, and seeing the disadvantages or shortcomings of self-cherishing attitude. So for that, you need to do study. And so Japanese Buddhists and Chinese and Korean who do meditation, of course, which is quite wonderful, but with mere single-pointed concentration may not be, you may not be able to overcome the negative emotions as such. But if it can do that, then Master Nagarjuna's and Master Chandrakirti's texts, such as Mula Madhyamaka Karika and so forth, and Prasanapada and Madhyamaka Avatara and so forth, are not necessary. So just withdrawing your mind in meditation without doing much thinking you will not be able to counter these mental afflictions. So what actually causes ruin is this self-cherishing attitude and that of the grasping at true existence in things and beings and self-cherishing attitude. And so, for these, in order to counter these, you need to develop the wisdom, realizing the reality of how things are, to counter this grasping at true existence of things, and cherishing others over oneself alone to counter self-cherishing attitude. And so, mere single-pointed concentration and called thoughtless meditation will not do this job. And therefore, meditation and cultivation of altruism towards others and the wisdom realizing the way things exist are important. And so, not only do not concentrate only on the single-pointed concentration, but on the analytical meditation as well. So that's all for today. Thank you.
See you again tomorrow. Tomorrow, I am going to.
So tomorrow, His Holiness will do the bodhicitta ceremony.
And ditch. Simjich.
So it's a ceremony on bodhicitta. So I've nothing else to add today. So thank you.